Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, as of midnight, 12:01, more sweeping tariffs. China hit with a 104% levy. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. We've got some updates from yesterday's program as well, but a lot of the focus will be on tariffs and, on the other side of the coin, the New York State budget and some New York State issues. First, some comments from viewers that came in after yesterday's broadcast. First one, morning. Well, good morning. The economy is really starting to kick into overdrive. I've been retired for 5 years now, and for the last month or so, my email inbox has been flooded with solicitations from headhunters recruiting for extremely lucrative positions. I have a huge amount of respect for President Trump and his administration. Under his leadership, America is finally getting back on track to an expeditious, I tried it earlier, prosperity, folks. Expeditious prosperity. I had to take a second. All right, another comment. I don't believe it. Rob Schneider of SNL fame was sitting at the same table that RFK Jr. made his speech from in Arizona. That was a surprise to me. I didn't think he was a Republican. Yes, he actually did some campaigning for the president, but a lot of what he did, if I'm not mistaken, and I didn't follow it real closely, but was that he was doing like podcasts and things like that and speaking out for the Trump administration. So he's been active. I don't know if he completely adheres to being a Republican, but I believe it was his support for Trump anyway that he was pushing during the campaign. So thank you for that comment. Yes, Rob Schneider, active in politics now. All right, so the U.S. government began collecting tariffs this morning imposed by President Trump on roughly 90 countries, including 104% levy on China. Now, this has been quite the talk in the media. China saying they will not back down. The sweeping reciprocal tariffs, which hit U.S. allies and adversaries alike, went into effect just after midnight and are in addition to a 10% baseline levy imposed on April the 5th. Trump slapped China with the steepest duties on imports after the People's Republic imposed retaliatory 34% tariffs on U.S. goods in response to the 34% import fee the president announced last week. White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt said yesterday it was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. So meaning at midnight today. She said this yesterday. Trump's 50% retaliatory tariff on China is in addition to the 34% reciprocal levy and the previously imposed 20% duty on Chinese imports, which amounts to 104% total tariff rate. Now, this all is in regards to what Trump has deemed a declaration of economic independence, as you are aware. We are going to learn more about this. Of course, what the media continues to play to their audience is the stock market and what the stock market is doing. Leavitt said the president met with his trade team this morning and he directed them to have tailor-made trade deals with each and every country that calls up this administration to strike a deal. But she noted, however, that Trump expects that these tariffs are going to go into effect. At a White House event on Tuesday, the president touted that the U.S. was already taking in almost $2 billion a day in tariffs. He also insisted that he's not opposed to making tailored deals with countries seeking relief. Not off the rack, these are tailored, highly tailored deals, he said. Domestically, Trump's tariffs has upset, for lack of a better word, Wall Street and fueled fears of inflation and a recession. That has been the main focus of the media, the stock market, and suggesting that these tariffs are going to do more harm than good. We're going to tell you what some are saying about it on both sides of the issue. That's a little bit later on in the program. I just wanted to start with that breaking story that the China 104% levy kicked in at 12:01 this morning. You don't get much more breaking news than that. Now, this is a major... Well, first of all, let me give you this update. Since we're talking about Trump, yesterday I brought to you the story of the tree planted by Andrew Jackson that just due to age and deterioration was forced to be removed from the White House grounds. Well, President Trump yesterday helped shovel dirt into the replacement for that historic White House tree. He said, "We have a beautiful tree now at the White House." The White House did not allow news media coverage of the tree planting, but afterwards shared a brief video clip on social media. Dale Haney, the longtime ground superintendent, was there, with Trump saying, "Dale's been here 53 years. He's fantastic." What is also, I suppose you could say, fun about the photos from the event, of course, Trump used a golden shovel. They've actually released, as I've mentioned on this program before, I'm on the communications team emails from the Trump administration, and they've released quite a long statement that I brought to you yesterday about why this was necessary and what was done. The tree was, quote, "in terrible condition, a very dangerous safety hazard at the White House entrance, no less, and must now be removed." The southern magnolia had stood for decades near the west side of the south portico of the White House. It's where president and prime ministers often are welcomed on their visits, as well as where the president himself exits to board Marine One helicopter or return from trips. Now, according to the National Park Service website, folklore tells us that President Andrew Jackson brought the tree's seeds from his home near Nashville, Tennessee. The seeds apparently were planted in honor of his wife, Rachel, who died shortly before he took office in 1829. So now a 12-year-old sapling that is a direct descendant of the Jackson magnolia was planted in its place on Tuesday. The National Park Service, which manages the White House grounds, said the sapling was grown at its off-site greenhouse specifically to replace the Jackson magnolia. They knew this was coming, that it was only a matter of time. The Park Service, and yesterday somebody suggested they make a bench out of the old tree, but the Park Service is keeping a sample of the down tree for historical and archival purposes and transferring any remaining wood to the executive residence. Trump has said the wood, quote, "may be used for other high and noble purposes." I know that's maybe not as breaking of a story as the 104% levy on China hitting last night, but nonetheless, we try to give you all the updates. We don't like to keep you hanging on this program from stories we brought to you in past shows. One, when we come back from break, one of those stories is right from our backyard. We're going to talk about that. We also, in a little bit, will be discussing, again, the New York State budget, where we are with that. Because hopefully you're aware of this story, I'm not going to show the graphic photos, but there was a brutal stabbing, bloody, in New York City recently. And because of that, there is some, let's say, more open talks about involuntary commitment. We're going to talk about that. Also, quite a few other things as well. Before I move along here, though, I've mentioned this a few times on the program, and I just wanted to highlight it because it's coming up very soon, and that is the event at Forest View Gang Mills Fire Department coming up on the 10th. So that is tomorrow. Coming up tomorrow, the Steuben County Veterans Service Agency and Dwyer program, we've talked about that a lot on this program before, they're holding a veterans lunch and benefits information session. This is absolutely free, where you can learn about your VA, federal, and local benefits And also, it should be noted that family and caretakers are welcome. There is all the information you need to know tomorrow from 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. I just wanted to highlight that, and I hope to highlight it again on tomorrow's broadcast, but also perhaps one more time today. Okay, there you go. Let's take our first break. When we come back, an update on Cornell. I'd love to hear your thoughts on China being hit with that 104% levy last night. We are just getting warmed up. We're just getting started. Stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
And Bath Planet has one question for you. Do you feel lucky? Well, do ya? Bath Planet is excited to announce the Dream Bath Giveaway 5. In the past 2 years, we have given away 4 brand new Dream Baths, and now it's your turn. The winner will be able to design their own bath or shower, complete with hundreds of color and pattern options, multiple shelf styles, and matching safety features. It's the Dream Bath Giveaway 5. Enter now by scanning the QR code or stopping by either of our 2 locations.
Spring Open House April 12th at AJ's Outdoor Power Equipment, Mansfield and Coudersport, PA. It's the Kubota Orange Day sales event. Largest rebates of the year. Discount on all steel products. Save 10% on all in-stock parts, cash only. Buy 1 chainsaw chain, get 1 half off. In-stock items only. Door prices all day with grand prize drawing. Spring Open House at AJ's Outdoor Power Equipment, both locations. Saturday, April 12th, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. AJ'sOutdoorPower.com.
Sounds awesome.
Every day, Judge Mathis presides.
Don't you ever form your mouth to talk to me like that.
Is another day when someone gets what they deserve.
What's wrong with you?
Mathis Court with Judge Mathis.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. A couple comments from viewers. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning, Mark. 104% tariffs on China. Wow. Yes. That was in response to China imposing retaliatory 34% tariffs a little while ago, where Carolyn Leavitt saying that Trump, I'm paraphrasing, doesn't like America taken advantage of, and if we're punched, he's going to punch back. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning to you, too. How do we oust Injustice Roberts? Well, that's interesting. I know there's a lot of pushback and a lot of anger, excuse me, in regards to Amy Coney Barrett. But we actually have a story here in just a little bit about the victories that Trump has had in the courts. One of the negatives coming from the court was allowing, and this was coming out yesterday, allowing the AP, do I have it right here closely to me, or did I save it for, yes, here we go. Allowing the Associated Press to return to the White House. A federal judge, now this is a federal judge, a district judge, it's not the Supreme Court, but because otherwise, when it comes to the Supreme Court, Trump has had some major victories. I know there's a lot of conservatives that are outraged at Amy Coney Barrett specifically because she seems to be siding with the left on the court. I don't know if that's going to be a trend. I don't know if she's concerned with, like one viewer said yesterday, kind of the doxing of judges, the attacks on judges, or if it's just kind of the peer pressure, wanting to be liked by the media, wanting to be liked by the left. I don't know. And I don't know if it's going to be a trend or if these are just a few issues that she had. But this is not the Supreme Court. But a federal judge ruled Tuesday the White House has to allow the Associated Press to take part in presidential pool coverage, including restoring access to Air Force One and other areas where only certain journalists are allowed to enter to speak to the president. How can a judge make this decision about, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, But D.C. U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden, who is a Trump appointee, promptly stayed his own order for 5 days, giving the administration until Sunday to appeal to a higher court before the rulings take effect. The White House implemented the ban after the AP refused to use the term Gulf of America. You may recall that in one of the many news cycles of the Trump administration. The outlet had argued that as a global outlet, it had the prerogative to continue using the Gulf of Mexico name. But doesn't the President of the United States have the prerogative to say who can and cannot follow him for press access? When does it get to the press has the right to be with him 24/7? I mean, if this judge is saying that that the AP, that is, should be allowed back on Air Force One, that seems like an overreach. The wire service immediately protested the ban, as you know. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt had argued getting to cover the president is a privilege, and that the press office had the right to ban outlets that did not comply with the government's new title for the Gulf. And I would agree it is a privilege. Not anybody with a media pass is allowed to trail the president at all these events. But the court ruled Tuesday that although the White House is not mandated to provide access to every event, it does have the responsibility to allow journalists the same access as similar outlets, even if they disagree with their views. Quote, the court simply holds that under the First Amendment, if the government opens its doors to some journalists, be it to the Oval Office, the East Room, or elsewhere, it cannot then shut those doors to other journalists because of their viewpoints. The Constitution requires no less. So I pose a question. If journalists are allowed in the Oval Office, East Room, or elsewhere, can I then, as a host of Frankly Speaking, as a journalist, can I then demand that same access? And if I could do that, how many of the thousands of radio and television programs throughout the country, what if they all demand that same access? So does that create a scenario where access is denied for all to combat that? There seems to be more questions raised by this judge than answered. Hundreds of reporters have a so-called hard pass, which allows access to the White House briefing room and press working area. A second, more limited group of journalists, referred to as the pool, are granted access to more intimate or restricted events with greater opportunity to ask the president face-to-face questions. The pool used to be decided by the White House Correspondents Association until the Trump administration took it over to handpick which journalists they could add to or remove from the pool. The AP previously had access to the president's limited events every day alongside fellow wires Reuters and Bloomberg. Under the Trump administration, only one wire service is allowed in the pool each day. After the ban, the AP was not even allowed into the wire rotation. Now, the White House has not immediately responded. We'll see where this is headed. The Biden White House adopted a novel pre-screening process for large indoor events and used the mechanism to ban the Post, the New York Post that is, for 7 months straight, following bombshell reporting that they did on Hunter Biden's laptop and the foreign business deals, the shady foreign business deals that were made by Hunter and made by Joe Biden. Biden aides at times claimed there was simply no space available while leaving up to 24 press seats empty. So it was okay for the Biden administration to do it, and we also have learned so much and knew so much about the lack of press access to mentally declining Joe Biden. Now the media is trying to save face with those books like by Jake Tapper, pretending it wasn't their fault. But in this instance, the AP more than happy to sue, I guess, would be the word, to get that access. And the judge finding in their favor. I have a feeling this will not be the last we hear of that story, but thank you for kind of getting me on a judicial tangent, viewer. I appreciate that. All right, update from Cornell. The Trump administration has frozen $1 billion in federal funding to Cornell. And on top of that, $790 million to Northwestern. This is all in response to civil rights investigations at both schools, and we had kind of warned of this coming to Cornell. Not that I imagine too many Cornell professors or administrators watch the program, but if they do, welcome, thank you. But we know that the Trump administration is not messing around anymore with the kind of anti-Semitic protests, or whether it's trans athletes Quote, the money was frozen in connection with several ongoing, credible, and concerning Title VI investigations. The pause largely involves grants and contracts to both schools with departments of Agriculture, Defense, Education, and Health and Human Services, according to the New York Times. A spokesperson from Northwestern told the Post they haven't received any notice from the federal government regarding a funding freeze, stating they were informed of the president's supposed decision by members of the media. Cornell leaders also said they have not received information to confirm the more than $1 billion figure, but noted the school earlier did receive more than 75 stop work orders from the Department of Defense tied to, quote, research that is profoundly significant to American national defense, cybersecurity, and health. Cornell President Michael Kotlikoff said, we are actively seeking information from federal officials to learn more about the basis for these decisions. The university has worked diligently to create an environment where all individuals and viewpoints are protected and respected. We are committed to working with our federal partners to continue the contributions made by our scientists and scholars. Now, both Cornell and Northwestern were both included on a list of 60 colleges and universities that the Department of Education's civil rights arm warned earlier this month would have federal funding taken away over alleged anti-Semitic discrimination and harassment on campus. And there was others. We brought you the list last time. I'm not going to go through the whole list. But Binghamton was on that list as well. 3 branches of the State University of New York. The list goes on and on. Cornell was thrust into the headlines after Hamas's barbaric assault on Israel, when history professor Russell Rickford said he was exhilarated and energized by the terror attack. The radical educator then later dodged any punishment for the disturbing declaration when he was allowed back to teach again in Ithaca at Cornell University. The shamed professor, who was recorded at an off-campus anti-Israel rally, returned to the classroom after he was placed on voluntary leave for his hateful remarks. So there you are, $1 billion, yes, our tax dollars going to Cornell at $1 billion. And that is drying up, and we're seeing the responses where some universities, well, like if you take Columbia, for instance, suggesting that, yes, we're going to make these changes. We want our money. We'll make all the changes you want. And then behind closed doors telling the outraged radical professors and faculty that, no, it was all to get Trump, to win the negotiation with Trump. And we know how that plays out. And I have a feeling China will see how that plays out as the 104% levy hits them at night, and the negotiation skills of the president. A couple other updates, and we're going to get to New York State issues. We're going to read your comments. I see a lot of comments coming in this morning. Your thoughts on the tariffs, your thoughts on Cornell losing $1 billion. Yes, $1 billion in funding. I have a list of endowments here, but I'm not sure exactly where I put it in my desk as we cleaned out the other day to put carpet in. I don't remember off the top of my head the Cornell's endowment, but I know it was shockingly high. If I can find that, I'll read that to you as well when we come back, and then we'll get into some other issues. So stay with us. We're just a tad bit late. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife Catherine.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
cameras everywhere. You can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. You're waking up to a whole new economic world this morning, folks. China hit with a 104% levy. Mark says he plans on boycotting Chinese products. I've already started by getting rid of Temu. I know that you're right, Mark. I just don't know what that is. My ignorance there. If every boycotted Chinese product, they would fold to the United States. Temu, I think it is, but not overly familiar with it. But you're right. I know you're exactly right. That was one of the biggest talks in all of this. Comment from a different viewer. Don't get to watch your show daily. Well, that's a shame, but I'm glad you joined us this morning. So I may have missed the discussion about Belt and Road. Instead of being a 10-ton monster on our doorstep, it seems to almost be a secret or taboo subject. Please challenge your audience to comment on it. Yes, I challenge my audience. Do you accept the challenge? We have talked about that in the past, and I can't remember recently what it was in regards to. But you're right. It does seem to be, the Belt and Road Initiative seems to be, secret or taboo is a perfect way of putting it. We talked about it. Boy, it's got to be over a year ago now. Maybe not. With former Congressman Tom Reed, and we were talking about the real threat that China poses. So thank you for that. And if anybody would like to weigh in on it. Comment from a different viewer. What a terrific day. Terrific day. Yes, thank you. What a terrific day. 5th time's the charm. Thank you. By the way, I looked it up, and Cornell's endowment, $10.7 billion. $10.7 billion in their endowment. And we'll see the calls of crying poverty very soon if that funding cut remains. But as another viewer writes in, listen, colleges, this is not Sleepy Joe. If you don't comply with Trump, your funding will go. I like the rhyme there. Thank you very much. Okay, by the way, this is kind of Doge-esque in a way. Kind of some of the goals of the Trump administration from the beginning, which was to weed out people that were going to try to hinder Trump's agenda, the MAGA agenda, whatever you want to call it. Well, the acting head of the Internal Revenue Service will resign in the wake of a deal struck on behalf of the agency that will see it share tax data on undocumented immigrants. Melanie Krause, a commissioner at the IRS, who is the third person to serve as its chief since the start of the year, will pack up her desk as part of the deferred resignation program offered by the Trump administration. The news of her plans to leave the federal agency comes less than a week before the deadline for individual tax returns. So prepare for this connection to be drawn by the media, that because the IRS is going to share tax data on undocumented immigrants, that it is going to cause trouble with your returns. It's going to cause trouble with the tax filings. There is no doubt why Ms. Krause, even though that was announced just the other day, but there's no doubt that this plays into her decision to make it the most disruptive, or at least give the media the opportunity to say it's the most disruptive time for her to leave. Krause decided to resign in apparent protest of the Trump administration's actions, according to the Washington Post. Quote, Melanie Krause has been leading the IRS through a time of extraordinary change. The department was in the midst of breaking down data silos that for too long have stood in the way of identifying waste, fraud, and abuse and bringing criminals to justice. The tax collecting agency had just finalized an agreement with the Department of Homeland Security to share taxpayer data to help the immigration authorities identify undocumented immigrants. The data sharing deal was signed Monday. We mentioned it on the program on Monday, or maybe we mentioned it on Tuesday, by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, bypassing Krause as the head of the IRS, which is part of the Treasury Department. The deal will allow DHS to request information about migrants who are already facing deportation orders and who are under criminal investigation with the IRS when responsible for sharing existing taxpayer data. Doug O'Donnell, the previous acting head of the IRS, also resigned due to the Treasury's attempt to sign a data sharing agreement with the DHS in February. The last Senate-confirmed IRS chief, Danny Weffel, left the post on President Trump's first day in office. But doesn't this... Well, let me take a step back. DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin said, under President Trump's leadership, the government is finally doing what it should have done all along, sharing information across the federal government to solve problems. Again, we know that any delay in a tax return, any issue is going to be highlighted by the media because there were so many cuts in the IRS even after that massive hiring at the IRS by the Biden administration. So they're going to blame it on that. They're going to blame it on this sharing of information, suggesting that because this Ms. Krause resigned, that it had put everything in a tizzy. So prepare for the media's coverage of that. But also, again, the idea of weeding out people that don't support the Trump agenda. Because, again, remember, Trump's agenda was pretty crystal clear when he ran for office. He's not someone that says one thing and does another. Now, you may not like what he's doing. That's not to say he's not doing what the American people voted him in to do. That there's something very different there. For those who say we did not vote for this, such as those at the Hands Off rally over the weekend, protest over the weekend, the landslide victory in November was a victory because the American people supported the agenda, whether you call it the MAGA agenda or the Trump agenda. These things are not coming as a surprise. Now, maybe the 104% levy on China is a surprise, but we knew that there was going to be tariffs. We knew, and in this case, we knew there were going to be changes made to the IRS and made to bureaucracy. And so if this person, Ms. Krause, doesn't believe, and this is what she did, she doesn't believe in the Trump agenda, then that's fine. She resigned. She took that deferred leave or deferred resignation. But that, going back to what Doge's original plan was the plan. That's how you get rid of the people that don't support the agenda. Okay. So again, you're waking up to a new economic world this morning with 104% levy on China. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. We are going to talk New York State when we come back because I don't want to miss that in all the talks of the tariffs. We can go back to the tariff talk. Just feel free to comment at any time on that, and we'll give you some insider information of what some behind the scenes are saying, what some people are saying in the news cycle in the media world, and we'll be checking our news sources to see any breaking news throughout the program, because I think that'll be necessary. But if you see any breaking news, please feel free to send it in at any time. All right, we got to take that short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox. The Big's website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's read a couple viewer comments here. Then we're going to get to some New York State issues, but feel free to interject at any time with it, whether it's tariff talk or whether it's Cornell. Comment from a viewer. In addition to my email overflowing with potential jobs, none of them are available here in New York. So Hochul, keep up with your anti-business, pro-crime agenda so us voting Republicans can make sure you will not get reelected. Comment from a different viewer. Speaking with my wife this morning, why would we tariff products and food we do not produce? Be selective. Also, as a side note, I have lost over $35,000 in retirement funds in the last month. Thank you, Mr. Trump. Starting to regret my vote. Thank you very much, viewer. And I'm sorry to hear about your retirement funds. We're going to go to New York State issues, but I see a lot of comments coming in. Please keep them coming in. I hope we have a whole segment full of comments when we come back from our next break. First, before we get into the New York State budget, I wanted to mention another New York State issue. As you know, friend of Frankly Speaking, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano is on the program very often, and he talks about, I actually have the pin about Donate Life, the Donate Life. And he was joined yesterday in a bipartisan fashion and with advocates to talk about organ donation legislation. So I thought only appropriate before we talk about the budget to give Phil a moment here from yesterday's press conference. It's just a few minutes. Keep those comments coming in. We'll try to read them after Phil's comment. Here we go. Here's Assemblyman Phil Palmisano.
I really think it's important to start with some statistics. Right now in New York, there are nearly 8,000 New Yorkers waiting for an organ transplant. Nearly 1,000 have been waiting for more than 5 years. The national average donation registration rate is 66%. New York is 51%. There are 52 registries across our country and territory. New York is 47 out of 52. We have the third highest need for organ donors, but the sixth worst organ donor registry rate. Sadly, last year, we lost nearly 400 New Yorkers, men, women, and children, waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. We can and we must do better. But the good news is, the most important statistic, if you take away from today, is right on this banner above us. One person, just one person who donates at the time of their death can save up to 8 lives and impact the lives of 75 others. So let us remember that. Crystal, again, thank you for your leadership on that. I want to say thank you to your staff, Paul and Valeria, your entire staff, and Rebecca from my office, who have worked together to put this event together. Events like this don't just happen, so the team really came together to put this together. I also want to say thank you to our members who are here, Republican and Democrat, Senate and Assembly, bipartisan, because this is about saving lives. I also want to say thank you to Aisha for your Donate Life team, what you do each and every day. What greater calling can you have than to focus on an issue that saves lives? Commissioner Schroeder, who we'll hear from, the work you're doing at the DMV and working with your county clerks. Thank you. Your efforts and your partnership have really changed the narrative. We are making progress, but we have a long way to go. The students, the incredible choir, the voices we heard from here today, the students who participated in the Donate Life Art Contest. I know we're hearing from one of our winners from last year, Ava, and I know Evan and Tonia are here who are winners as well. I also met Peyton today, a transplant recipient who was also singing, so thank you for being here. It's about our kids. This is about our kids, so thank you for being here. A special thank you to the media for being here to help get out this very important message of saving lives and a message of hope. And we have these that they can hand out. And if you want to put a little message of hope outside your door, in your offices, at work or home, at school, just a little message of hope we'll hand out afterward as well. And when I think about this issue, there are four names that really come to mind to me. Former Assemblyman Bill Hoyt in 1992 had a heart attack on the assembly floor, later passed away. My understanding, he was waiting for a heart transplant that never came. Jim Conte, our former floor leader, was a two-time kidney transplant recipient and a staunch and passionate advocate for organ donation. Unfortunately, Jim passed away in 2012. I think of Lauren Shields, the brave and heroic 12-year-old little girl who had a heart transplant at the age of 12, but then lended her name, but not just her name, her voice and her power of advocacy to this very important issue, which is why we have Lauren's Law today. So when you go to the DMV to get your driver's license, you have to answer the question. Do you want to be an organ donor? You can either say yes or skip the question, but you must answer the question for your license to be processed. And of course, personally for me, I think about my sister Teresa. My sister Teresa was a juvenile diabetic at a very young age that ravaged her body over her lifetime and needed a transplant. She had two transplants, first in 2000 from the kindness of a stranger who made that decision to donate at the time of their death. Second, in 2006, I had the privilege to donate a kidney to my sister. I've seen firsthand how organ donation can impact a family. Sadly, I lost my sister Teresa in 2013 from the complications to juvenile diabetes. But I tell people, Teresa was the lucky one. She had two transplants. Most people don't even get one. So if you're already a donor today, thank you. If you're not, please talk to your family. Please consider being an organ donor. And we recognize that sometimes this is a tough issue to talk about because you're talking about one's own death. But I say to you, think about if it was your family member, your mom or dad, your brother or sister, husband or wife, or God forbid, your son or daughter, and they were in need of a life-saving organ transplant. And you heard those numbers I talked about earlier. So let's do more. Not just here during Donate Life Month, but year-round. Let's do more. Let's do better. Let's do it and work together. Let's save lives and bring this message of hope to New Yorkers all across the state. Thank you.
Thank you to Assemblyman Phil Palmisano there. Speaking of New York State, the budget negotiations are on pause, according to Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins. That the negotiations have hit a pause is her exact term, because policy debates are gumming up the process, even if they are at what she calls the beginning of the end. Governor Kathy Hochul has indicated that her key priorities in the budget don't have much room for daylight. Between discovery reform, involuntary commitment, a cell phone ban in schools, and a mask ban, Hochul is willing to wait as long as it takes for a deal that meets her wishes. Stewart-Cousins saying we want to get it done, but we want to do it the right way. This is what we always talk about. It's not going to be on time, and it's not going to be good. There's a lot of policy, as you know, being discussed, and actually it seems that every day we have new policy being brought up. Like I said, nature abhors a vacuum. Apparently budgets abhor vacuums as well. Well, the later the budget is, the more the governor gets blamed, according to lawmakers. We know very often Governor Hochul does cave when it comes to major initiatives that she's pushing forward because of the far left in Albany and because she doesn't want that bad look, if you will. The later the budget, the more the governor gets blamed, said Deputy Senate Majority Leader Mike Generis. If she wants to go through that route that other governors have gone through, she can figure it out herself. He dismissed the idea that the governor's attempt at leverage would hold any weight. It never works. Legislators do not make substantive decisions based on the desire to go home. Now, Governor Hochul had signaled that there may not be a spring break. I would disagree with, or at least at the federal level. The state level may be different, but I think those politicians do want to get home. And if you're talking about taking away their spring break, that could definitely spur some negotiations moving forward. We got to take a short break. A little bit more on New York State. A couple things I think you're going to find interesting. I've got a lot of comments coming in. Please keep those comments coming in. I want to read them when we come back from break. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio on Market Street and Corning. In a brave new world, 104% tariffs hitting China last night at midnight. If you're just joining us, I want to hear your take on that. A couple of comments from viewers. I know this is not being discussed, but didn't Obama, when he's buying up ammo, he bought up ammo for the IRS? Yeah, that was a major controversy at the time, and I guess when you think about the fact that Biden increased how many IRS employees there were, it raised red flags, but it wasn't something the media covered. It wasn't something they thought you should know, because let's face it, it's the same thing what happened with Doge. When Doge stepped into the IRS, they thought you were going to be terrified because they have such a, what's the word I want to look at? Respect's not the right word, but almost a passion, if you will, for the IRS. And I think most Americans don't have that same passion for the IRS. So the scare tactics, I don't believe, are going to work in that instance. A comment from a different viewer. Mark writes in, I voted for Trump, so I have to take the good and the bad. But I didn't vote for Hochul, and I still have to take the bad. No choice. That's a good point. And then being told Temu is Chinese marketplace or Chinese Amazon, if you will. I thought that's what it was, and I'm sure I've come across it in my online travels, if you will. But thank you for giving me kind of a clear, concise definition of what it is. Okay, back to New York State for just a moment. A new bill out of New York State would, and I know a lot of you, this is going to be important. This is a big story for you. Would give critters due process after Peanut, the squirrel, was seized and beheaded by the DEC agents. And I wasn't saying that sarcastically. I know this was a major, major story. We talked about it as recently as last Friday with former Congressman and current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. State Republicans are pushing a bill that would give animals seized by the government a stay of execution after Peanut the squirrel was decapitated by the government last year. Peanut's grieving owners, Mark and Daniela Longo, joined the state assemblyman Jake Blumenkrantz at the state capitol Tuesday to unveil Peanut's Law, the Humane Animal Protection Act, which would require the Department of Environmental Conservation to wait 72 hours after euthanizing any seized animals. Mark Longo said, "I sit here trying not to cry, but passing this law will be a movement to make sure that animal rights are not overlooked anymore. I loved those animals to death, and today is a day that we push forward to make sure that the tragedy never happens again." All right. The Assemblyman, Blumenkrantz, said his death stopped people in their tracks, from the President of the United States to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, to celebrities, to everyday New Yorkers. They were not dangerous. They were not sick. They were not wild threats roaming the streets. They were rescues, loved, nurtured, and safe. Here's the cold, hard truth. It is too little, too late. Words don't save Peanut and Fred, and words won't save the next animal or the next family unless we change the law. All right. New York lawmakers are also close, they said, on a deal with Hochul to expand involuntary commitment. Why? Why all of a sudden a change of heart? Well, because of that bloody attack that shook New York City. So it's not being done for the right reasons, for public safety. It's done because the optics would look bad if they don't after another bloody attack. A bloody attack that could have been avoided if they would have agreed sooner to expanding involuntary commitment. Albany lawmakers are nearing a deal on this involuntary commitment law. State Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie told reporters Tuesday that negotiations have moved beyond an impasse, but details have yet to be locked down. "I think involuntary is close," he said. Disagreements among Democrats and progressives, pushback against Hochul's involuntary commitment and discovery law proposals have helped push the state's budget far past, of course, as we know, that April 1st deadline. This was kind of put on its head with that bloody attack. A maniac with schizophrenia allegedly slashed his 4 young nieces with a meat cleaver before NYPD officers shot and grievously wounded him. This was just on Sunday. If you saw some of these photos, like a day later, a homeless man who had been through dozens of mental health hearings randomly slashed a woman in the neck in broad daylight on a Soho street, sending her to the ICU. Hastie didn't say whether lawmakers have agreed to part of Hochul's proposal that would expand the criteria to force mentally ill people into psychiatric care, a bid omitted from the Assembly's own budget plan. He did reveal that talks include a pilot program for county-level behavioral health teams that work with police on 911 calls, as well as rigorous discharge plan for people once they are dismissed from psychiatric care. We have one other thing on this, a couple of quick things about New York State, and then we're going to get back to tariffs. Please keep the comments coming in. We'll be right back. We're Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
In today's securing your business is more important than ever. Protected with Boss Security's state-of-the-art alarm systems. When seconds matter, trust the experts. Boss Security is proud to safeguard local businesses across the Twin Tiers. Contact Boss Security today.
I invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
Every day Judge Ebony K. Williams presides is another day when right prevails over wrong.
I can tell what happened to you, sir, because I was born at night, not last night.
Equal justice with Judge Ebony K. Williams.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. What do you think of the Trump assassin trying to get a Stinger missile to shoot down Trump's plane? How did that not put this guy on somebody's radar ahead of time? This was the alleged assassin at the golf course. According to recent filings, Ryan Routh is his name, made reconnaissance trips before alleged incidents in West Palm Beach. So he was charged. We know that he was looking for a rocket launcher as well as anti-aircraft missiles from a person he thought was a Ukrainian arms dealer. The document added substantial additional details to the Justice Department's case against Ryan Routh, who allegedly made several trips, as I mentioned, back on August of 2024, attempted to acquire anti-aircraft weapons, which prosecutors say provides direct evidence of an assassination attempt tied to his surveillance of Palm Beach International Airport, where Trump, then running for the presidency, would come and go. Saying to his online contact, "I need equipment so that Trump cannot get elected. Send me an RPG, rocket-propelled grenade, or Stinger aircraft missile, and I will see what we can do. Trump is not good for Ukraine." Wow. Yeah, that was one, as we talked about the news cycle, that was one that was a breaking story yesterday. Going back to, quickly, some New York State issues. The last one here on involuntary commitment, and then a couple other things we'll breeze through quickly. But Hochul would give hospitals more freedom and legal cover to hold and treat the seriously mentally ill. And let not just doctors, but psychiatric nurse practitioners recommend involuntary commitment. But lefty lawmakers balked at the idea of hospitalizing even the most obvious head cases. And progressive groups are shelling out big money on lobbyists to pressure legislators into rejecting Hochul's reforms. One such outfit, the Alliance for Rights and Recovery, audaciously claims these proposals will traumatize more New Yorkers. Does an attack with a meat cleaver count as traumatizing? How about getting shoved in front of a subway train by a maniac who's talking to himself? The list goes on and on. Even if these supposed bleeding hearts can't bring themselves to think about these victims, do they really believe that being free to carve up kids during a possible episode was a more compassionate outcome for Chen? He was the one involved with the butcher knives. Than being hospitalized and treated, even against his will? New Yorkers certainly don't think so. Nearly 90% support expanding involuntary commitment. The state failed these 4 youngsters by letting Chen slip through the cracks. But the way to prevent future bloodbaths is painfully obvious. Stop the madness, pass and enforce stronger involuntary commitment laws. All right, a lot of comments come in. We're going to talk a little bit more about New York State issues, but just very, very quickly. And then we're going to get back into tariffs. If you are just waking up, if you are just joining us, 104% tariffs on China as of 12:01 this morning. Your thoughts? Stay with us. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 moments away.
Ollie's deals are so good, you won't believe the prices.
Can this price be real?
This has to be a joke.
It's no joke. This store is amazing. You have to see it for yourself. Ollie's Bargain Outlet sells famous brand name merchandise at up to 70% off the fancy store prices. Bargains on housewares, toys, bed and bath, books, food, gifts, and so much more. Hurry in to get the deals now, because when they're gone, they're gone.
Ollie!
Good stuff, cheap!
One of the I like most about being a mortgage loan officer is helping people make dreams come true.
The most satisfying part is seeing people succeed in accomplishing the purchase of a home.
Whether it's refinancing for a lower monthly payment, a lower interest rate, or to tap in your home's equity.
Whether you're buying your first home or looking to refinance, First Heritage will be here to help.
My name is Cindy.
My name is Tracy.
My name is Peter.
My name is Deb.
We are here to guide you.
Every Judge Mathis presides
Don't you ever form your mouth to talk to me like that.
is another day when someone
Our number two, well, frankly speaking, as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, if you are just waking up, 104% tariffs on China began this morning, along with the, 90 countries, right around 90 countries being hit with other tariffs. Would like your thoughts on that. We're going to talk about what some people have had to say about it. And we're looking for breaking stories as the morning unfolds. But going back to one more, technically two more New York State issues, as we talk about the delay in the New York State budget that was due April the 1st. We talk so often here, and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano does such a great job in regards to this, about the clean energy fantasies of Albany. Well, Robert Bryce says New York's headlong push for an all-renewable electric grid is running out of gas, or, to be more accurate, it's colliding with New Yorkers who refuse to allow their farms, forests, and neighborhoods to be paved with oceans of solar panels and planted with forests of 600-foot-high wind turbines. They say some of the biggest hurdles they are facing towards these, quote, ambitious renewable targets, they're unreachable. They're untenable. You're not going to hit these goals that the governor has set. The grid is not there. Simple as that. But it's local opposition. You won't hear much about it in the legacy media outlets, but New York has been an epicenter of the backlash against big solar and big wind for 2 decades. This is, and they go through the history of this, and that's, I don't think, necessary for this discussion. But it says, in addition to the possibility of electricity shortages, and we talk about that in a rural area like ours with bad winters, bad summers, New York consumers are being hammered by cost increases due to the state's renewable mandates. We talked about this about NYSEG, right? In February, Con Ed proposed a rate increase that will increase the cost of an average gas and electricity bill by $154 per month. Those increases will add further pain to New Yorkers, who now pay about 24.4 cents per kilowatt hour for their electricity, nearly 48% more than the U.S. average. More cost increases are coming. The state's climate plan hinges on a massive increase in offshore wind energy, among the most expensive ways to produce power. Ratepayers will also be on the hook for some $26 billion worth of high-voltage transmission projects needed to accommodate more wind and solar. The punchline here is obvious. New Yorkers have been duped. For years, climate groups and their myriad of Albany allies have claimed that the state can run solely on alternative energy, if only it had the political will. But now even the solar and wind jihadists are being forced to admit that their plans are being short-circuited by rural and neighborhood opposition to wind projects, solar projects, and most recently to lithium-ion battery storage sites as well. Speaking of rejections, here's the latest. In February, the town board in Dunkirk voted 3-1 to reject a 3.75 megawatt solar project. Town supervisor Priscilla Penfold, who voted against, said it would diminish the agricultural nature of the town. That rejection won't be the last. And just speaking in a kind of a weird segue, but an important segue, don't forget, coming right up on the 16th of April, that NYSEG is having their community connection event. It's not a town hall. It's you meet one-on-one. I don't think I ended up hearing from anyone that attended the one that was in Big Flats. But if you went, what did you think? but this is for the Steuben County area. It's April 16th from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Campbell Fire Department. It's kind of a first come, first serve, and you have an opportunity to talk with NYSEG about your bills, about what's going on. Okay. One last thing on New York, but it's kind of more of a national story. We had something similar to this recently on the program, where you actually have towns, you have mayors, you have supervisors who are saying, we don't want Tesla in our community. This happening in New York. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Colony, New York. The town of Colony Planning Board is set to review a proposal for a 30,000 square foot Tesla showroom and charging service station. And yet some residents there decided to protest the event and show their opposition. Now, I would think, living in New York, any jobs, any money coming to your area would be welcomed with open arms. But protesters gathered outside Colony Town Hall ahead of the meeting, voicing their dissatisfaction with Elon Musk. Okay. State Senator Patricia Fay said today is about Tesla, but it's not about the vehicle owners. It's about Elon Musk, who is literally taking a hatchet to so many of our most valued services: the Veterans Administration, U.S. Department of Education, now Social Security. One protester saying, I think this is a huge, serious power grab that Trump and Musk and all his cronies are doing. The corruption is blatant and astounding, and the cuts are a sham for their authoritarian fascist agenda. You know what will show them? Not accepting jobs and not accepting a business, a tax-paying business in your community. That will show Trump and Musk. That's an effective protest. A protest. Come here. Come to our area. Elon, put in a 30,000 square foot Tesla showroom and charging service station. That protest will really get under Musk and Trump's skin when you pass up all those jobs, pass up all that revenue. Showing you a little bit of the misguided. Well, it ties in. I mean, EVs were going to be the most important thing that could ever happen. It was going to save the planet. And now, because Elon Musk has sided with the Republican, they are being attacked. Tesla, that is. Owners are being attacked. Now, Elon Musk, though, yesterday, you see, him and Trump are not agreeing, or I shouldn't say him and Trump. Him and Trump's policies and him and Peter Navarro are not seeing eye to eye on the tariffs. We'll talk about that in just 1 second, but I'm going in order of my stack of paper, and I don't want to forget about this. And I got a lot of comments coming in. We'll do our best to get to them in the next segment. Usha Vance has been a somewhat quiet presence during the campaign, during these first few months of the administration. But there's a first time, I guess you could say, sit down interview with her. And it was with the Times. And she said, and you can read it for yourself, but it kind of gives her history. And she talks about JD, and she says, my husband's world can be very lonely is the title of it because of his role as vice president. This is her first interview since becoming second lady. Now, she is 39 years old, and that makes her one of the youngest women to have held this role. She said the couple had struggled with the lack of time they now have with each other. She told the Free Press the vice president relied on her as his closest advisor, with the pair discussing the news in their U.S. Naval Observatory residence in Washington. Yet busy with the daily demands of being second in command to President Trump, JD's communication with her most often has to be via text message sent between meetings. She said, I don't know that he's asking me for advice so much as it can be a very lonely, lonely world not to share with someone. You can find that for yourself. I found it on, I believe it was Drudge Report this morning, though there's this new, I don't know if you want to call it meme or trend, where people on the left are going online and criticizing, which is another, shows the hypocrisy of where the left can go sometimes, criticizing what women are wearing, how they're doing their makeup, what they look like, because those women are conservative. They're calling it like a conservative fashion, right? And they specifically call out women's looks and fashion. But they're calling it this conservative fashion movement. And Usha Vance was asked how she feels fitting in with all the, quote, blondes and Botox that make up MAGA land. This was the Free Press asking her, with all the blondes and Botox and facelifts, the low-cut blouses and 9-inch heels. She said, and this is her response, a charming response, "I'm laughing because it would be really hard for me to be blonde. That color would look totally absurd." The classy second lady added that she has been warmly welcomed by the party and people don't seem to care how she looks or dresses. "For what it's worth, my reception into the world, and I'm not from a particularly wealthy background, not from a very fashion-oriented background personally or professionally, has been really positive. People don't seem to care all that much what I look like." That is the trend that shows you, I believe, very much the hypocrisy of judging women on their looks, on their fashion. But that is the new trend online by the left, going after Carolyn Levitt and so many others. But when we come back, Elon Musk, tariffs. Yes, this morning, if you are just joining us, 104% tariff hits China at 12:01 this morning. What's your thoughts? Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmaron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmaron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmaron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmaron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Your water is delicious.
I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system.
What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
Spring Open House April 12th at AJ's Outdoor Power Equipment, Mansfield and Coudersport, PA. It's the Kubota Orange Day sales event. Largest rebates of the year. Discount on all steel products. Save 10% on all in-stock parts, cash only. Buy one chainsaw chain, get one half off. In-stock items only. Door prices all day with grand prize drawing. Spring Open House at AJ's Outdoor Power Equipment, both locations. Saturday, April 12th, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. AJ'sOutdoorPower.com.
Sounds awesome.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDC. Thank you to Boss Security for bringing us that beautiful view of Market Street this morning as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. We have so many comments coming in, and I really appreciate that. I love the discussion because if you are just waking up, not all the comments are on this, if you're just waking up, 104% tariff hit China last night at 12:01. All right, let's go through these comments. First one, if people buy American, tariffs don't matter. Whatever you buy will last longer also. My only problem is that 85% of our pharmaceutical products come from there. You raise a great point and a much more important discussion for another time. If you think about it, when COVID hit, and then you had the supply chain issues after COVID, it really showed how dependent we are on China for some major products. And you raise a very important one there, our pharmaceuticals. We should not be getting 85% of our pharmaceuticals from elsewhere. That's a larger discussion about supply chains and keeping things in America as well. So thank you. Comment from a different viewer. The Trump administration is freezing more than $1 billion in federal funds to Cornell and $790 million in funding for Northwestern University in response to civil rights investigations at both schools. Yes, thank you. We brought that up in the early 6 o'clock hour as one of our kind of recaps from stories we brought to you earlier. We did talk about that, proving again that the Trump administration is not messing around when it comes to these civil rights violations by these universities. And if you look at Cornell specifically, we on this program, again, not that they, the faculty and professors are watching this program most likely, we had sent out that warning that this is not something to take lightly if you're worried about your funding. So they're going to lose $1 billion. I think they'll be fine. They have an endowment of over $10.7 billion. All right, comment from it. Oh my goodness. We got more comments than I even have here. This might be a whole segment worth of comments. Let's keep going. Comment from a different viewer. I'm a bit bothered by the viewer who's second-guessing his choice of president. I, too, have seen significant loss in the market, but I know that if we go the distance, it'll bounce back and probably quickly. I would ask the viewer what the alternative is. Will he or she vote for a Democrat knowing what they stand for? I prefer to wait it out and breathe, relax, and know that we're looking out for our children and grandchildren's future and well-being. Thank you. Very well put, viewer, and I appreciate that sentiment because I know it bothers me too when I heard that, and I understand the person's point of view. I'm not knocking it, but saying that they're starting to second guess because of the amount they lost in the retirement fund. Second guessing Trump. I'm not going to downplay their feelings on losing $35,000 at all. So I'm not doing that. But I'm with you, viewer. That bothered me on a emotional front, not on a thinking that the statement was wrong. Okay, I can move on. A comment from a different viewer. As far as tariffs, the media and Democrats are denouncing them. But I've been watching this closely, and more economists say they will work than say they will fail. So let's see. Thank you very much, viewer. Next viewer. How is the investigation of NYSEG going? Has it been discovered that NYSEG has been other than honest regarding its billing practices? I believe that, as far as I am aware, that investigation is ongoing. I have not heard any kind of final results on that. But if I do, I will make sure to report to you as soon as I hear. Comment from Ken. Ken writes in, the push for New York to be completely green in a short time frame has nothing to do with saving the environment. It's about increasing the wealth of the Democrats. I would bet that if you check their portfolios, you would find that they are or will be heavily invested in green technology futures. Thank you, Ken. Comment from a different viewer. I guess all the prices are going to double in the dollar stores. There's a 100% tariff on Chinese products. Everything in the dollar stores are from China, even when you think that it's something that it isn't. Thank you for that. And finally, just to wrap up, and I understand, I see more coming in. I didn't have a chance to read them ahead of time, and it's kind of awkward as I try to read them live on the air. We will get to them after the next break, which is coming up very shortly because we almost filled this whole break with just your comments. So last comment of this segment. My opinion is that we will do just fine without China. Thank you very much. Viewers, keep them coming in. Elon Musk ripped Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navarro. We had quoted Peter Navarro quite a bit yesterday. Musk called him a moron who's dumber than a sack of bricks. This is in response to Peter Navarro on CNBC's Squawk Box, saying that the Tesla boss was not a car manufacturer, but a car assembler, pointing to the electric vehicle companies importing of batteries and other key components to manufacture its cars. Elon Musk going on X saying Navarro is truly a moron. What he says here is demonstrably false. Tesla has the most American-made cars. Navarro is dumber than a sack of bricks. By any definition whatsoever, Tesla is the most vertically integrated auto manufacturer in America with the highest percentage of U.S. content. Navarro should ask the fake experts he invented. Okay. So we don't know what this will do as Trump and Musk having that great relationship. Will this be something that sees a strain in the relationship? White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt downplayed Musk and Navarro's feud, saying there are obviously two sides who are offering very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys, and we will let their public sparring continue. You guys should all be very grateful that we have the most transparent administration in history. There's a very good point to that, and that's an interesting way of looking at it. Well, anyway, Chuck Schumer, and what do you think about that spat? Do you think that is the beginning of the end? I know the media has been trying to push the beginning of the end of any kind of connection between Trump and Musk, saying it's over. Trump's going to hate that Musk is getting more attention. That's really been since day one of Doge, or I would even argue day one of the administration, and perhaps even before. They've been trying to put a rift in that relationship, or also try to suggest it was over and that they actually hate each other, or that they're dressing each other down at some point over an argument. Your thoughts? Okay. Chuck Schumer was on CNN's The Source. Brianna Keeler said on the tariff issue, you've been in the Senate for more than a quarter century. Do you think Chuck Schumer takes that as a badge of honor, or do you think he thinks, like most of us, that if I'm Schumer, I would say, do you have to mention that? That doesn't give me the best look. Or do you think he actually says that's a badge of honor? But anyway, you've been in the Senate for more than a quarter century. And in that time, Congress has been really, think about that, someone that talk about a lifetime politician. Congress has been really willing to delegate tariff power to the president. Should Democrats have reclaimed that power when they had the last of the majority? You saw what Trump did in his first term with tariffs. Schumer said, well, yeah, but we were able to beat back a lot of what Trump did on tariffs. And nothing is as extensive as this is. Over 180 countries affected. Hey, this has been so carelessly done that they're putting tariffs on penguins. There are 2 islands near Australia. You kind of know the story a little bit better, Chuck. Congress has always had the power to deal with tariffs, and we've always had these fights in the past on some of the tariff issues as well. But now that Trump is going so overboard, Congress has every legal authority to take those powers back, and that's what we aim to do. And we hope our colleagues in the Republican Party, knowing how bad this is, instead of just trembling in their boots because they're afraid of Trump, join with us and side with the American people. So that's Chuck Schumer telling Republicans what they should do. Sadly, if you want my opinion, and you might not like my opinion, I think there will be Republicans that heed what he had to say. Someone like Chuck Grassley has already said that Congress has delegated too much authority to the president on trade. So where will this lead, and what does this also mean for Trump's big, beautiful budget? We'll talk about some more on that. But right now, we have to take a short break. Your comments when we come back. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Please stay with us.
You don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his arm.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription. Grab your Fox Sports app today.
Something with a diamond in it. Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name.
Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Sharing the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Such great viewer comments as we broadcast live from the Hasselson studio. Thank you. Everybody's vocal this morning. As one person called it, it's going to be a terrific day. China hit with 104% tariff this morning. All right, let's go through these viewer comments, shall we? I feel Ukraine claiming they captured Chinese soldiers is an attempt to draw the world into World War III rather than end the war. Yes, that was another breaking story that came out yesterday, that Ukraine is suggesting that Russia is using the Chinese in their military, as they had captured, I think, 2 members. So yes, thank you for that comment. That was a breaking story. I'm not sure about your concern. I'm not sure where that's going to lead. I'm not downplaying your concern. I'm just saying I'm not sure where that will lead, because that was a breaking story, and I'm not sure exactly what Ukraine has been saying on that issue. Coming from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I was just watching CBS this morning. Of course, they are attacking tariffs. One thing caught my attention. The lady said that we, United States citizens, are paid too much to make products in the USA. Does that mean that the Democrats still support slave labor? If not in U.S., overseas? Yeah, I mean, even look at some of the issues with the green energy products that we use here in New York State, and where we get some of the materials that we need. But that's a great question. I know that Jasmine Crockett said some very nasty things, much in regards to what you're saying, suggesting, again, this idea that Americans don't want to do certain jobs, that they're paid too much. And also, to your point, wouldn't that also speak about the unions that the Democrats support so thoroughly? So if U.S. citizens are being paid too much, is that because of unions? So they're either for slave labor or against unions? What is? I mean, because obviously China doesn't have labor unions, and they do have slave labor. That's just verified fact. So good comment. Comment from a different viewer. Colonies is the most populous suburb of Albany. Oh, okay. Where our state government jobs are. Yes, I believe Albany County is 90% Democrat also. Okay, thank you. I wasn't aware it was so close to Albany. That makes more sense now. If you are wondering what that's in reference to, in Colony, some residents were protesting the opportunity for a 30,000 square foot Tesla dealership and Tesla charging station, not wanting the jobs, not wanting the money that brings into colonies. But why would they, to that viewer's point, why would they care when they're in Albany? A lot of money flows around Albany. A lot of money flows through that area. Comment from a different viewer. You lose in the market if you sell when it's down. Don't sell, that viewer says. Another viewer saying China needs us more than we need them. Ken writes, I was educated yesterday by someone on a neighbor's social media app, responding to something my wife said. She was asked why the right blindly follows Trump, considering the horrible things he does. My wife responded with the same question back to her on why they blindly follow the Democrats, given their horrible policies. The response she got was that they were ending the conversation since my wife was going Darvo on them. I had never heard of this acronym, so I Googled it. The acronym, again, DARVO, stands for Deny, Attack, Reverse, Victim, and Offender. I've never heard that either, Ken. Apparently, this is what the Democrats accuse Republicans of when they can't or don't want to respond to a question. Oh, interesting. Huh. I'm going to have to do a little more, not research. I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. But I never heard that term either. But that does seem like an easy way that if you just say, oh, I'm being Darvoed. It's kind of like when people throw around, I'm being gaslit, or you're gaslighting me, and not really knowing the definition. It becomes an easy thing to back your way out of a debate or say you no longer want to debate. So that is interesting, Ken. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Comment from a different viewer. Hopefully Trump can get the coal power plant below Corning going and expand. Thank you very much. Viewers, everybody having great comments this morning. As I mentioned, Chuck Grassley co-sponsored bipartisan legislation to limit President Trump's trade authority. He said that he thinks Congress has delegated too much authority to the president. Now, Chuck Grassley is a Republican from Iowa. Chuck Schumer earlier demanding that Republicans get on board with stopping Trump's trade policies. He said, this is Grassley, I made very clear throughout my public service that I'm a free and fair trader. Maybe word that different, Chuck. I'm a free and fair trader. There's got to be a better way to word that than calling yourself a trader. Anyway, the Constitution gives Congress the authority to regulate interstate and foreign commerce. I believe that Congress delegated too much authority to the president in the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 and Trade Act of 1974. That said, I support President Trump's agenda to lower tariffs and non-tariff barriers other countries impose on American goods. I support President Trump's agenda to get a better deal from China and other countries for our farmers and manufacturers. So the Hill presenting it as Congress has been delegated too much authority to president on trade. They then, 3 paragraphs down, suggest that maybe he is still supportive of what Trump is doing. But is that a little bit of weakness coming from Grassley, or do you think that's the media trying to make a big deal out of that story? Stephen Collinson from CNN says that Trump's tariff onslaught against China launches a battle the U.S. may not be able to win. Now, we read Stephen Collinson quite frequently on this program because he's far left CNN, and it's good to know what the talking points are. President Donald Trump just ignited a direct showdown with the one nation that might be able to beat the United States at a trade war. Trump's escalation against China, which is about to face tariffs of at least 104% on goods entering the U.S., is the most serious pivot yet in his global tariff onslaught and has the most potential to inflict severe blowback on American citizens in soaring prices. The confrontation follows years of U.S. attempts to address perceived trade abuses by China. Perceived. Let's take a step back and see where Stephen Collinson's head's at if he's writing this from an unbiased position. The confrontation follows years of U.S. attempts to address perceived trade abuses by China. It's also the culmination of a decade or more of worsening relations, prompted by an aggressive and nationalistic shift by a Pacific competitor turned hostile superpower that now seems itching to challenge the U.S. might. And it's a dark landmark in a diplomatic relationship that will help define the 21st century and a breakdown for a long U.S. project to prevent tensions erupting into a full-on trade war or potentially much worse between two giants. So now Stephen Collinson suggesting that this could lead to an all-out war, if you read between the lines. And then he goes on to give the history of Nixon and China. But tensions are peaking over trade with hubris on both sides. Trump's claims that the U.S. had been raped and pillaged by trade partners are hyperbolic. But his grievances about Beijing's behavior have been shared by multiple presidents. Tensions often flare over import dumping, market access for U.S. firms, intellectual property theft, currency manipulation, and industrial espionage. Previous White Houses pursued targeted enforcement and other penalties to try to reshape China's behavior. Years of acrimony in the relationship have fueled the shared bipartisan doctrine in Washington that Beijing is a preeminent military and economic threat to the United States. But Trump's aggression is unparalleled. He believes he has a unique and perhaps final opportunity to transform the U.S. dynamic with what the U.S. Trade Representative's Office describes as the world's largest trading nation. We have one shot at this, Trump told reporters yesterday. But his method is impulsive and indiscriminate. It lacks a clear strategy. So you're not going to believe it. CNN does not think Trump is going to be successful on this. That Stephen Collinson and CNN believe that Trump is going to fail in this endeavor. Now, China yesterday, I don't know if you've seen it, released a AI video, artificial intelligence video, mocking and ridiculing the tariffs. The AI video showed what you would, I guess the PC term would be obese Americans working in a warehouse, toiling away in factories. The video went viral. It was a way to mock the Trump administration's aim of returning manufacturing jobs back to American soil. You can watch the video for yourself online, but being used as a way, China mocking the United States. But Scott, how am I doing? Oh, I got to take a short break. We'll read your comments when we come back. Stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we will be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
The Big's website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. We'll read some of your comments here a little bit later on. I got a lot of waves, a lot of comments coming in. I appreciate that. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, just to tie into what we've so far heard from Chuck Grassley, we've heard from Chuck Schumer. Well, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on Squawk Box yesterday that China's escalation of tariffs is a big mistake because it's playing a losing hand. And as you saw this morning at 12:01, China hit with 104% levy. Bessent said if we put up a tariff wall, the ultimate goal would be to bring jobs back to the U.S. But in the meantime, we will be collecting substantial tariffs. If we're successful, tariffs would be a melting ice cube. In a way, because you're taking in the revenues as the manufacturing facilities are built in the U.S. And there should be some level of symmetry between the taxes we begin taking in with the new industry from the payroll taxes as the tariffs decline. I think you are going to see some very large countries with large trade deficits come forward very quickly. If they come to the table with solid proposals, I think we can end up with some good deals. And if you saw what President Trump said yesterday during the speech, saying that there will be custom-made deals for countries that seek to negotiate, he said very specifically, not off-the-rack deals, custom-made deals. Bessent said, I think it was a big mistake, the Chinese escalation, because they're playing with a pair of twos. Traditionally, if you look at the history of the trade negotiations, we are the deficit country. What we do when we lose by the Chinese raising tariffs on us, what do we lose? We export 1/5 to them of what they export to us. So that is a losing hand for them. And I thought that was the reason I read that. I think that puts it a little bit all into focus. Now, just as a perhaps side note, if you're curious, the agricultural secretary doesn't expect egg prices to significantly increase after this tariff announcement. Brooke Rollins says she doesn't expect that when she sat down with Fox News chief political anchor Bret Baier. The United States has been importing eggs from other countries such as Turkey and Mexico to fill the supply gap as it grapples with the flu outbreak. Will those eggs be tariffed coming in from Turkey or South Korea, wherever they are? Yes, they will, but the market in America is already adjusting. We have been working on the egg issue, obviously, since we started a couple months ago. We released a big, bold plan on A, how to combat the avian flu, B, how to deregulate under Biden's crazy over-regulations out of the USDA that caused the prices to go up, even aside from the avian flu. We saw those prices significantly decline, but while that's happening, we also put forward massive repopulation. Now, Nicholas Eberstadt, and I think this is interesting, it's something you may not consider. And the headline is, 7 million young men don't want to work. So, according to Nicholas, we must force them. President Trump wants to get America's vast army of dropout men back into the workforce. This attention to this problem is long overdue. Nearly 7 million men in the prime of their life, over a tenth of the 25 to 54 age group, are neither working nor looking for work. But Team Trump is trying to fix that problem, but they say with the wrong tools. They argue that trade policy, tariffs, and industry policy, special treatment for manufacturing, will reverse the long-term flight from work by men by creating high-paying jobs to lure them back to work. This approach may sound sensible to some, unfortunately is likely to fail, even though the White House could succeed through other pro-work policies. So your thoughts on that at a time when we are talking, and we've talked about this extensively on the program, when young people dropping out of the workforce, will this Trump's plan, this is one of the things he's looking at with tariffs, will that bring people back with these good high-paying jobs back into the working world? So you can find this, and the argument that Nicholas is making is that as a country, we've incentivized helplessness with programs, or I should say school loan debt, that have cost so many people kind of the will, if you will, to work. But also if you look at some of the degrees that people are walking away with, not helping them in their future endeavors. So this piece you can find in the New York Post. I don't want to read it word for word, but the idea that 7 million young men don't want to get into the workforce. Okay. Trump, now let's talk about the budget and how this may affect the budget, these trade policies. Again, I know I keep saying it all morning, but if you're just waking up, China hit with that 104% levy last night at 12:01. So now we move ahead to the big, beautiful budget, as Trump calls it. Trump told Republican senators he's open to raising taxes on the highest earners. That's according to 3 people familiar with the meeting, so I will say take it with a very big grain of salt. A lot of times these leaks are blown out of proportion by the media, but just something to keep in mind. Trump's comments came during a sit-down about his agenda with John Thune, after Lindsey Graham asked Trump how he'd view a proposal to let taxes increase on the highest earners. The president replied he'd be fine with the idea. See, what he wants to do, and we've heard this in the past, is pay for some of these initiatives like no tax on tips and Social Security, which, by the way, is something the media does not bring to your attention very often, as they try to, and the hands-off protesters, as they try to suggest he's going after your Social Security. Remember, one of the things he's been saying since day one is he wants to, in this big, beautiful budget, have it so Social Security is not taxed. So what part of that is do you want him to keep his hands off of? Trump's remarks were not seen by attendees as a full-throated support of tax on the rich, but his willingness to entertain higher fees or higher rates for upper-income taxpayers aligns with recent positive signals about the approach from some White House allies. That'll be interesting. So let's say he does propose that. He proposes, I'd love to hear your thought on this. So he proposes a tax, higher tax on the rich, the quote-unquote rich. Will that mean that those on the left and these protesters in the media will now have to do a 180 on this too, like they did electric vehicles, and now say they don't support taxes on the rich? How will that be handled? Because that could really have them twisted up in a pretzel or painted into a corner, because we know the media typically and those on the left cannot agree with anything that Trump does, no matter what it is. So he's painting kind of a corner for them when you think about no tax on tips, which they were supportive of. But if it comes on the backs of the rich, will they then be supportive or not supportive any longer of taxing the rich? Putting them in an interesting situation. A lot of comments coming in. Thank you so much. We'll get to those when we come back from this break. So stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will be right back.
Well, it's strained.
It is?
It's a repetitive motion injury. Do you do this a lot?
Well, I do give out a lot of checks. Now, what about this pain in my back?
Tender, huh? Do you play any contact sports?
Thank you.
Wow!
That explains it. Stick to friendly nods for the next couple of weeks.
What better start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Children learn from our behaviors. They learn what is okay from the adults they see. If you're a distracted driver, chances are they will be too. What kind of driver are you?
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horses. Look at our beautiful view of historic Market Street, the Gafford District. We are broadcasting from that location in the Hesselson studio. Comments from viewers. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. As a customer of Steuben Rural Electric Corporation, or Cooperative, I have been notified of an upcoming 30% increase in energy costs over 3 years due to New York regulations. Has the price of water going over Niagara Falls increased or what? My current energy charge per kilowatt hour is 3.8%, or 3.8 cents, Compare that to NYSEG rates. Yes, thank you, Fred. We were just talking about that earlier on. Wow, that is amazing. But it is, when we talk about the New York regulations, especially as we talk about the budget process and just something like the Climate Change Superfund, that doesn't, if you remember with the Climate Change Superfund, Carl Hastie said they weren't going to vote on it because he's never seen, and I'm paraphrasing, but never seen that kind of fine levied on a company, or that kind of bill sent to a company that wasn't ultimately paid for by the consumer. And hours later, he changed his mind, let it go through, and now fossil fuel industry in New York looking at a $75 billion bill. Where do you think that money is going to come from? It's not going to be out of their pockets. It's going to be out of our pockets. So thank you for that. One viewer saying trader or trader. CG, Charles Grassley, surprised me. Comment from a different viewer. Regarding China, all the way back to the Clinton administration, both Democrats and Republicans have expressed concern regarding trade, etc., with China, but said concerns were only lip service. Finally, we have a transparent administration who does what it said it will do. Thank you very much. Yes, it's been going on for as long as I remember. So finally, a president who will put their money where their mouth is. Ken writes in, China was built and continues to build thousands of small coal-fired power plants, and while they do have coal mines in their country, they still have to import coal to meet their needs. Russia and the U.S. are the two major suppliers of coal. If we stop or slow down coal exports to them, it will be a huge problem for their economy. I think China is trying to show strength to the world, but will quickly negotiate a low tariff settlement with Trump. With their economy not as strong as it has been, they won't take a chance on reducing sales to their biggest consumer or hurting imports of coal from the U.S. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate that. And finally, last comment in this segment. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. I just looked up all American-made companies. There are hundreds with almost every product you would need. Sorry, China. Thank you very much. Going back to Trump's budget resolution, looking to face some opposition, and this has been a major concern, just like when we start talking about the tariffs, opposition from none other than House conservatives. Now, this is coming from the Hill, so take that for what it's worth. But at least 10 House Republicans have said they will vote no on the measure, and a handful of others have publicly criticized the resolution, creating an uphill battle for Speaker Johnson in what, as we know, is, and this term is a cliche at this point, but razor-thin majority. Speaker Johnson is eyeing a Wednesday vote today on the Senate-approved budget resolution, which would unlock the reconciliation process that Republicans are looking to use to pass tax cuts, border funding, and energy policy. The Speaker is actively urging his ranks to fall in line, and the White House has begun making calls to House Republicans, according to the Hill. But a mounting swell of resistance among fiscal hawks who want commitments on large spending cuts up front are putting the plan in jeopardy. Underscoring the discontent, Representative Andy Harris, the chair of the Hard Line, according to the Hill, House Freedom Caucus, who has sharply criticized the budget resolution, is advocating for the chamber to skip the vote altogether and move straight to crafting the details of the package, an unconventional move that would be a break from protocol. Asked about prospects of the bill passing, Harris said, quote, "It doesn't need to. The committees can do their work without the budget resolution." Now, Trump yesterday telling the Republicans who are opposed to his big, beautiful budget bill to quote, "Close your eyes and get there. Stop grandstanding." And that's one of the problems with many of these conservative Republicans that always want to be a fly in the ointment so they get that attention. We've seen it time and time again, especially in regards to the Trump administration. President Trump urged House Republican lawmakers to just, quote, "Close your eyes and get there." Talking about the one big, beautiful bill critical to enacting his economic agenda. He warned that it would be a disaster for Republicans and the country if they were to do this kind of grandstanding. They have to get there, he told the GOP holdouts. And I think we are there. We had a great meeting today. I think we are there. But just in case there are a couple of Republicans not there, you just got to get there. It's a phenomenal bill. Stop grandstanding. So at least 10 House Republicans are looking or indicating that they don't like it as is. Now, we know Republicans, for whatever reason, very often they will vote with Democrats and then say they're doing it for the good of the country and good for the conservatism, which is a hard explanation to make to me. It kind of falls strangely on my ears. But you've got to know, of course, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, the Democrats will never side with Republicans in this scenario. There won't be one or two people saying, you know, I actually kind of do like the big, beautiful bill. They will fall in lockstep. So having 10 House Republicans leaning in that direction is troubling for the future of this bill. They want more guarantees of direct cuts. Trump dismissed these Republican holdouts, though, for a little bit more in spending cuts, arguing that if they wait to pass a bill, you end up getting nothing. Speaker Johnson described the Senate bill as one of the most consequential pieces of legislation that Congress has passed in decades and perhaps in the history of Congress. It is considered crucial to quickly passing legislation related to several key Trump campaign promises, such as tax cuts, eliminating taxes on tipped wages. Johnson noted that the new 7-seat GOP majority in the House means that we can lose 3 votes now and still pass a bill. It's an embarrassment of riches, Speaker Johnson joked. I tell you, this job is so easy. Trump saying it's going to be legendary. So there we are. He also spoke about tariffs, and I know that's been our big topic of the day. So we could continue with that. But Trump saying, we got to take a break. We're going to wrap up reading your last comments as we end this morning's broadcast. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDC. Thank you again to Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We thank them for that beautiful view of Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Wrapping up today's discussions with just a few minutes ago. Comments from viewers. What is the point of winning the tariff war if the quality of life decreases? Well, I know this is in reference to the comments made earlier, but to the response to your original question, the person had said that it was a fight for their children and grandchildren's future, that it was about the future success of the country. So I'm not sure what part of the quality of life. Are you saying permanently decreases? But I won't be able to answer that before the end of the program. Comment from a different viewer. When you were talking about what Schumer had to say and what is happening in New York, what has Chuck Schumer done for New York? That is a fantastic question. We have a man who, they even said during his interview, had spent a quarter of a century in Congress. He started, of course, in Congress. He was in Senate for the longest time. I think he even may have started as an assemblyman. But yes, that is just a long time in, well, being a career politician. Final comment. This is going to be a perfect way to wrap up this morning's broadcast on comments. Frank, enjoy the sunny day. Well, thank you. You enjoy the sunny day as well. And thank you for watching. As we call today here on Frankly Speaking, President Trump expressed that he was proud to be the president for the workers and the middle class instead of Wall Street, the political class and the outsourcers. That was at that dinner yesterday, where he said how the Democrat Party was not afraid that the Trump administration's America First policies would fail, but they were terrified the strategy would succeed. So on that note, thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for all the discussion on China being hit with the 104% tariff. There was a lot, yes, as you can tell here, that we missed. That we didn't get an opportunity to get to all of it, but that's why you have to tune in every morning. We pack in everything that you need to know for the rest of the day. So I'm asking you to join us every weekday morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. I look forward to it already.